I actually remember the first day that I was not working. I graduated college. I got a job with IBM. I finished, I think graduation was over the weekend. I started the job on Monday. So I'd never taken time off. I had 3 kids. I pretty much was working from the hospital bed. I didn't take any time off, and I don't advocate that, but that's just who I was at the time. So yeah, I had never not worked, and I can remember actually getting up that next morning and brushing my teeth and I wasn't multitasking, trying to answer emails at the same time that I was brushing my teeth, fixing my hair, and I thought, what am I going to do today? I hadn't ever really had time off. I was always available. I was available to the employees. I was available to our partners. I kind of prided myself that if you need something, reach me whenever. And so here I was going, nobody's going to need me. Like, nobody needs me. My kids still needed me. And I'd been a single mom for 20 years. And so, I was used to having kind of chaos at home and raising these kids and then my work. And that silence was deafening.
Hi, I'm Bryan Wish, and welcome back to the One Away Show. Today's guest is Jill Belconis, a former mortgage banking CEO turned strategic business coach, whose career has been defined by courage, clarity, and reinvention. Jill shares the moment she walked away from a 30-year career after leading a 500-person company through an acquisition she couldn't fully stand behind. What followed was a quiet reckoning, time in the Colorado mountains, deep reflection, and an unexpected journey into coaching and servant leadership. In this episode, we explore how Jill found her way from executive identity to personal purpose, what she learned from being the first woman to chair YPO's International board, and why her work today is more fulfilling than anything she's done before. This conversation is about transitions, values, and choosing alignment over certainty. Let's dive in. Jill, welcome to the One Away Show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, Jill, what is your one away moment that you want to share with us today?
Yeah, what I'd like to share is that for 30 years, I was in the mortgage banking industry and had built up a company across 35 states, over 500 employees. But the mortgage company was a wholly owned subsidiary of a bank. And back in the 2008, 2009 era, it was pretty tough in the banking world. And the bank was forced to sell the mortgage company to a private equity firm to raise capital for the bank. Otherwise, the bank wouldn't have survived. And so I was the CEO president of the mortgage company, and they wouldn't buy it unless I went along with it. And I thought, you know what? What's going to change? They are really excited about the mortgage company and the way it's being run, and they wanted to make sure everybody, the 500 plus employees, stayed intact and thought it would be business as usual. Well, I found out pretty quickly that it wasn't. That some of the stories that you hear, and there's great private equity companies out there. This one was not familiar with the mortgage banking industry, and there's lots of ups and downs, sort of like real estate. We follow real estate, and it was a residential mortgage company. And the minute the interest rates went up and things changed, they sort of panicked and wanted people to be fired and all kinds of things. And what happened is that, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I go on trust me, I know what we're doing. I know the team knows what they're doing. We've been through this so many times. And what I found out is that they, uh, they had a different set of core values. And I didn't realize how important that was, is that the culture and the core values that we had within the company were quite different. And not only did we have these 500 employees that so many of them had been with us for a long part of their careers, but we also had these joint venture partnerships with big residential real estate companies, residential builders, and those were long-term relationships. And we truly treated them as partners, and everything was kind of an upheaval in this new era. And, at the end of the day, you have to be able to be true to yourself. And so over that year, I had not intended, I figured it was going to be business usual and I was going to continue in the mortgage business, running the company and so forth. And what I got about halfway through the year and I said, I don't know that I can do this. I can't sell myself. I can't sell myself out. And it was a really, really tough decision. I actually, I can remember I had never taken more than a week of vacation. And I was actually taking 2 weeks out in the Colorado Rockies and did a ton of hiking. And somehow that cleared my head and I was able to see things. And I said, I, maybe it's time for me to leave. Maybe it's time. But what I didn't realize is how much of my identity was caught up in it. And I think that that happens to people that you identify yourself with the company. And again, after 30 years, I wasn't sure. Yes, I was a mom of 3 kids and a friend and a daughter and all that, but oh my gosh, my identity was the president of this mortgage company. So it was a really, really tough decision. And when I did decide to leave, I had lots of opportunities like any other industry. When you're in it for a long time, it becomes very small and you know everybody. And people reach out to me shocked that I was leaving and they're come start up and do what you did and bring the whole team. And I actually didn't have a non-compete. I could have done that, but it wasn't the right thing to do.
Mm.
Um, and so I did not do that. And I could have started, I could have gone, I have lots of job opportunities in the mortgage world. And I decided maybe it's time to close that door because one of my core values is around lifelong learning. And I thought maybe it's time that I want to enrich my thinking and take this experience and what can I do with it? And and maybe work within a different industry. But I felt like I was still young enough at the time that I had a second chapter waiting for me. And so, but it was a big decision. It was a big decision.
I'm sure incredibly stressful. Maybe a lot of unknown, a lot of, you said your identity was wrapped up in a company. Thank God for the Rocky Mountains. We could talk about that a lot more offline. And it seems like you brought yourself ultimately, despite sounds like everything you did to get the company to a certain point, uh, brought yourself to a place of clarity of what you needed to do. What were you most scared of? When you said, "Hey, this is like the decision I need to make," what were you most fearful of?
I I actually remember the first day that I was not working. And and I graduated college. I got a job with IBM. I finished, I think graduation was over the weekend. I started the job on Monday. So I'd never taken time off. I had 3 kids. I pretty much was working from the hospital bed. I didn't take any time off, and I don't advocate that, but that's just who I was at the time. So yeah, I had never not worked, and I can remember actually getting up that next morning and brushing my teeth and I wasn't multitasking, trying to answer emails at the same time that I was brushing my teeth, fixing my hair, and I thought, "What am I gonna do today?" I mean, this is just I hadn't ever really had time off. I hadn't had and I was always, um I felt like I was, and I was, and that was again who I am as a leader. I was always available. I was available to the employees. I was available to our partners. Uh, I kind of prided myself that if you need something, reach me whenever. And so here I was going, nobody's going to need me. Like, nobody needs me. My kids still needed me, but at that point, I had, let's see, I had 2 in college. And no, I had actually 3 in college. Maybe one had just gotten out, but I y yes, they needed me for different reasons, but nobody was at home. I, and I'd been a single mom for 20 years, and so, I was used to having kinda chaos at home and raising these kids and then my work, and that silence was deafening.
Appreciate you sharing all this. And like, it just struck me when you said, no one is going to need me. Work doesn't need me. My kids are doing their thing. They don't need me. And you spent some, sounds like some time in silence. What do you think? Well, I don't want to be too prescriptive or project here. It sounds like this was a very introspective time. Is that fair to say?
It was, and, I talked to some people who had been in transition, and the best advice I got 2 pieces of really good advice. Number 1 was don't rush. Don't rush and feel like you have to do something right away. Take some time to think. And I had never taken time to think, like you said. I'm always doing, doing, doing. And I decided I am going to just be, just be at peace and give my mind some time to think. And the other was that when I did decide what I wanted to do, instead of, because I did have people reaching out to me with some really interesting opportunities, even outside of the mortgage business. And I thought, I got to take that advice. Don't rush into anything. But is to, instead of looking at that role, looking and saying, what are kind of the top attributes of what I want to be doing, how I want to be spending my work life. And so that if an opportunity would come forward, I would look at this list and go, oh, gee, that doesn't even match up. That's not even close. Because I get excited about just about everything. I think, "Oh my gosh, I can do this. That would be really cool. That would be," and then I put it against my list and go, that's not what I'm looking for. That's not the parameters." And so, that really helped me. One of the first things I did, though, say yes to, and this was actually very cool, and I think, everything led me to the path that I'm on now, but is that I knew somebody that was an adjunct professor at Syracuse University out in New York, and they were working with the Small Business Administration, and they had put together this entrepreneurship program. And they needed people that had real life work experience or CEO, president experience, growing a business, and we're having them go out to different our US military bases and teach transitioning military that wanted to come back and start a business. And so I did that for, oh my gosh, I don't know if I did that for 2 years, but you wouldn't believe where we have US military bases. I traveled all around and they were usually outside of the main city, but I would spend 2 days there, and it was what I learned from that experience, first of all, I mean, our military and what they have given up, it felt so good to be able to do what I was doing, and they were so incredibly appreciative of the knowledge, and I realized that at that point, I liked this I liked, first of all, the impact that I could have. And I didn't realize when they would ask me questions, how much in the 30 years I learned from not only what went right, my successes, but what not to do. And so I had more wisdom than I realized. And I thought, this is I'm really grateful that I have this platform to be able to give that back. And
Mhm.
so I love that, and I realize I need that added to my attribute list of somehow I need to be in almost a teaching, coaching type of,
Mm.
role, and so that was which that's what I do now. I'm a strategic business coach, and I really think that that's what led me there.
Amazing. Well, appreciate you also sharing kind of some of the internalization. And also it sounds like you took stock of the things you were good at, where you kind of derive joy, the things that you felt appreciated and the ways you wanted to give more to the world that were conducive to your spirit and how you showed up. You said something though, and I want to double click on it as well. You said the silence was deafening. Um, you just shared, I would say, some of the really positive takeaways. Uh, on the flip side of that, I'm sure there were things that were also hard to look in the mirror at, potentially to grapple with. What were some of the things that you also maybe learned about yourself or became clear that were maybe kind of hard to process kind of in that moment, in the period of, hey, no one needs me?
That both personally and professionally, but it kind of melded together, is that I think that that silence, that nobody's calling. Nobody's saying help. And I'm a problem solver. I'm a pleaser. I get a lot of joy out of doing that. So I wasn't having that. And that to me is energizing. Being around people energizes me. And s- and uh and I like to be moving. I like to be active. I like to be thinking. And I remember the first, gosh, I don't know how many months it had been, but somebody I knew who ran a bank and had a mortgage company said, "Gosh, we're not looking to hire you. We'd actually like you to come on our board." And for the bank, and they interviewed me, or I went to lunch with a couple of the principals, and they started asking me things about the mortgage business. And I thought, holy cow, this was only after, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. And I felt like my brain was mush.
Mhm.
Right? And my takeaway from that is it's sort of like going to the gym. If you stop going to the gym, you're not going to be able to walk back into the gym and lift 20-pound weights and do a whole bunch of reps. Or at least I wouldn't be able to. Uh, and it's the same thing. My mind, it had sort of stopped.
Mm.
And I think that, to me, that mental fitness is as important as the physical. And so I realized again at that point is, oh my gosh, I need this interaction. I need people questioning me. I need to be doing things. And that's pretty much then when I started doing that work with the military.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. It's cool that you like also noticed kind of your brain atrophying. But maybe on the flip side, it was slowing down. So you, as you said, you could recognize where you wanted to activate it again in a more in just a way that was thoughtful and supportive to how you wanted to kind of live your life moving forward. Uh,
I
what,
did get a lot of projects done around the house.
there you
Uh,
go.
because I have always been somebody that, every day before I go to sleep, I have my priorities for the next day, and that did not stop. That did not stop. I couldn't have a blank piece of paper.
For sure. You said something, about kind of going into to working on the military side to what your friend was doing with SBA, Syracuse, all that. But, you know, I just want to tap a little bit more into this transition piece. You seem to uh, be able to get clear though on um like what you like to do, right? Like where you really derive kind of your value and kind of purpose for helping other people in the world. What did you realize kind of the ways in which you like supporting people, like as you were actively leading the mortgage company, or like how did you process or kind of take the time to kind of hone in and say, hey, these are some of my strengths and gifts, and I want to actually then go apply those strengths and gifts to supporting the world in XYZ ways. Like, how did that process unfold for you? Because I think so many people in transition have this incredible experience and they're like, what is life? And how do I kind of package and take all this to something finite in a way I can kind of lock into? Um, how were you able to do that for yourself?
Yeah, so I think, well, there was also probably a secondary one away point for me.
Right.
And so in 1998, I joined YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization, and it's a global organization of CEOs and presidents. The company has to be of a certain size, number of employees, but the mission of YPO is to make better leaders through education and idea exchange. And I joined the Chicago chapter, and uh, it- worldwide, I think at the time, maybe 5% of the 20,000 plus at the time were women. In the Chicago chapter, I don't know, there was maybe a couple other women. There had never been a chapter chair as a woman of the Chicago chapter. And I ended up, after a couple of years, I got involved. And so the way I look at things is that I don't do, I didn't have a lot of bandwidth to do lots of different things just to stack my resume. But if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be all in. And I really want to contribute because I believe that when you get more back, the more that you give. Uh, and so I got really involved in YPO. Well, years went by, and suddenly I ended up getting elected to the international board, which was at the time about 20 people that represented all over the world. And then once you're on the board, I got elected as the international chairman. And at that point, right now is the 75th anniversary this year, but it was the 60-year anniversary at the time. And I was the first woman to ever get elected in that role. And I will say that that was actually unbelievably life-changing. Because it's one thing to run a company and you have employees. These are peers. And let me tell you, I don't know how many, but many of these companies were much bigger than the mortgage company. And they had, incredible backgrounds and incredible experience, incredible education, but they were peers. And leading peers and I learned to be a servant leader. So not only did I come back, so I'm kind of thinking about that question of of how did I figure out what I was good at? I realized that I can build relationships with people, and really care about others. And if you truly care about others, and I think this gets back to my core values, and one of them is, how can I impact others? How can I share my wisdom? How can I share my experience? Whatever it is, I feel like there's something that I can share, and that you can't read in a book. You can't get on AI. I mean, there's still that kind of old fashioned been there, done that, and I realized the value in my sharing that. And so again, this YPO experience, it just opened up. I mean, I met people around the world. It was, I mean, an incredible experience. I got way more back than I gave in that year that I served as chairman. But yeah, I realized that I don't need to run a company again. I don't need to have 500 employees. What I want to do is take the experience that I had of running the mortgage company, take the experience that got from being the YPO International chairman and being the servant leader, and figure out how I can help others, how I can take this, package this up, coach others to scale their companies, scale their leaders in the companies, because you can't grow a company without growing the leaders. And it's been unbelievably satisfying. I mean, it's been just and that's what I've been doing now since 2017. I'm a scaling up, which is the methodology from Vern Harnish. And I use those tools and combine it with all my experience and work with mid-market companies, and just I'm seeing fabulous growth.
Awesome. It's cool that you get to meet. I want to talk more about that on the coaching side for sure. Um, it's cool that you get to meet companies in that place, right? Given your own learnings as a mid-market leader, growing the mortgage company as well. Um, when you were on the board for YPO International, and you got way more back. Uh, what when you kind of look back on that experience, and you said there were so many interesting people, more caliber, expertise, whatever it is, right? But when you look at that year that you spent giving and being part of that, what were there any formative experiences that you recall that, were very shaping and kind of your own growth in leadership or how you think about leading others or managing a board with a bunch of other, crazy entrepreneurial types can also come with these challenges. So I'm just curious in a good way, right? So I'm just curious what that board from a formative and developmental perspective for you, kind of what it taught you and kind of things that you take with you to this day.
What comes to mind is authenticity. I think people related to me because I was really authentic. I don't know what they expected. And I I've always said I'm the same person in business as I am at home and with friends and family, and that there aren't different personas. And I, what I couldn't believe as I traveled again around the world and met all these people, they didn't, they really didn't want to hear about YPO and all the resources we have and what's the next event. And because you're basically the ambassador for YPO in that year. But they wanted to hear my story. They wanted to hear my path. Not that different from what we're talking about now. And gosh, that was in 2010, 2011. So it was a challenging time back in the banking world and so forth. So, telling those stories, talking about, I mean, people wanted to know personally. They were shocked that was doing this and I was a single mom of three and how I had raised these kids. And I mean, and balance it. I mean, it was just interesting. It was interesting how many uh, men in YPO kind of gravitated toward it, saying, I can't wait to go home and tell my daughter that I met you and what you've done. And that this, even though maybe the generation that I come from, women aren't in those kind of positions, but I mean, they all want it for their daughters. And so I thought that was really cool. And to be a role model for that, I felt very, very honored.
That's amazing. That I think Ben saw the development and capacity in you for what you were able to lead and build and said, hey, like, I want my daughter to be like that.
Mhm.
Um, just out of curiosity, Jill, like growing up, what was your measure of success? Like what was your mom doing in the world? Like how did that shape your drive, right? It seems like you came out gunning to do something, great and build something amazing, but you get that from somewhere. Was that family related? Was that inspired by mom? Like what was shaped that in you?
So this might surprise you. First of all, I think I was an entrepreneur at a very young age. And the minute I could start babysitting, I was babysitting. And this is going to age me. And people that are listening to this are going to go, are you kidding? So I babysat for these people all the time that lived just down the street. And they had four little kids. And I think three were in diapers at one time. This is before disposable diapers. These were cloth diapers, not a nice service that comes and picks up and brings the clean ones. Literally pinning them on, cleaning them, and I got paid 50 cents an hour. 50 cents an hour. But hey, I loved doing it. That probably shaped me as that I couldn't wait till I was going to be my own mom and have my own kids. But so I was making money doing that. I also where we grew up and I grew up in a very middle class environment. My dad worked, my mom didn't. And we actually had, I don't know if you know the flowers, they're called peonies, but I would cut down all the peonies and we were sort of on a busy street and I set up a table and I was selling our peonies. Um, and I don't know where my mom was. I don't know how she didn't realize I was doing this. But and people were coming back and I had this business going of selling peonies. So, I don't know that, but it started early. It started early, that work ethic or that entrepreneurial spirit. But my mom never worked. Um, my mom did not work, and she so actually my sister-in-law has always said she's so surprised that I'm her daughter because so incredibly different. And my mom's, knock on wood, she's about to turn 91 and she's amazing. But I got all of that from my dad. So I have one brother who's 2 years older, and the support that I got over the years from my dad. First of all, my dad never treated us differently. I never got stereotyped as the girl and you can't do it because you're a girl is, and so my dad was my mentor. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago, but absolutely positively my mentor in so many ways. And he just, he supported everything I did. He never pushed. He was just a great dad, great mentor, great role model.
Wow. Amazing. It's cool that you saw that growing up. And you also, when you said peonies, I smiled because those are my mom's, one of her favorite flowers. And
Oh, really?
yeah, and she always did a lot of gardening and growing up. And she's actually a mortgage banker. She's been
Oh, Ray, you
yeah, really.
said that.
So anyways,
Well, maybe I was destined.
maybe it's a mortgage banking woman, coming out now. I don't know. I'm kidding, but that's awesome. Very cool. So Jill, thanks for, going to all the places here. I appreciate it. It's cool to hear your journey. Now you're, I think, at a stage where your maybe ikigai or your kind of center, kind of passions, expertise, ways you're making money are kind of unfolding for you. Talk to us a little bit about that journey, what you're doing for companies, how you're doing it, whatever comes to mind. I'd love to understand and give voice to how you're supporting companies.
You get back to I think you used the word unknown. And I have not ever been afraid of the unknown. Uh, and I've stepped into the unknown. And clearly, when I left the mortgage company, I was stepping into the unknown. I had no idea what I was going to do. And again, I could have stayed in the mortgage business, but I kind of challenged my thinking. And it was unbelievably humbling, which I think is good, is when I decided that I was going to do this strategic business coaching. And yes, I had all this hands-on experience as a CEO and growing a company, which I think has been a huge advantage, but I still wanted the academic part of it. I wanted the teachings, the tools, the resources. And so it was a pretty intense certification program that needed to go through. It was on site for a couple days, and then there was tons of readings and tests and everything else. And then you were actually in front of an oral panel of senior coaches, and they tested you. And I I I was really nervous. I mean, it was, I didn't want to fail. I studied so hard, and I did pass and got my certification. But what was so interesting is everybody in the community, in this coaching community, is independent. I mean, the only thing that brings us together is that we're licensing these tools, but there's a lot of sharing and everything else. Well, I went to the first meeting. They had these annual meetings, and I went to the first meeting. And as I said, the only word I can use is humbling. Not only was it humbling to be starting over and learning and having to pass tests and everything else, which I wanted to do this. I wanted to challenge myself. But then going to these meetings, and I was surrounded by people that had been doing this for a long time and were super successful at it. And so, frankly, nobody could care less, and I don't blame them, that I was the president of this mortgage company and, yeah, that sold and saved the bank. I mean, all of that. Who cares? Nobody cares. I'm starting over. I'm the newbie. I'm at the bottom of the food chain. I have to build my clients. I have to go out and build this business. And I'll tell you, that was that alone, again, getting into the unknown. I I had no idea that I was going where I am today, there was no guarantee. Nobody was going to do this for me. I had to figure out how to do it on my own. And I, listen, it's been I started in 2017, what it's been 8 years. And it's not only is it's successful in so many ways. I fortunately am working with amazing companies, the CEOs and presidents and their leadership teams. And I get so much satisfaction about watching and seeing how they grow. I've got several companies I've been working with for a couple of them 5 or 6 years. I mean, and just because they're growing, their leadership team has changed, and I know them. So I really become somebody on their executive team. I'm part of the team in a sense, and it's just it's really, really rewarding. It's really rewarding to be able to, at this point in my life, if I'm not having fun and feeling like this is this is just great. I have a lot of friends that have recently transitioned into retirement, and they're asking me, and they're taking up hobbies. Some are golfers, some are playing pickleball, and like, when are you going to retire? I go, I'm not. This is my hobby. I get so much satisfaction out of what I'm doing and enjoy it so much that, I'll be honest, I can pick and choose who I work with. If there's somebody, I can't work with somebody that isn't coachable. And so that's probably the number one thing that I learned is that they need to be open and they want to be able to really grow and they want me to pick out their blind spots. And I'm also, one of my core values is around kindness. And and the way that I come across, the way I communicate. In fact, after my YPO International Chairman year, I was asked to do a TED Talk. So I actually have a TED Talk out there, and it's called Succeed Like a Man and Lead Like a Woman. And it really boils down to you can be really successful. It doesn't matter. I mean, actually, I profess that women have the upper hand because we can be as successful as men, but I think there's a certain level of kindness that and caring that comes along with it, and that's how I have chosen to lead. But sometimes that kindness comes across as or it comes in the shape of the kind truth, and so again, I'm helping leaders grow and giving them honest feedback in a very kind way is probably what they find most helpful. And I mean, that's getting back to this is, if you say in the craziest sense of the word, what your calling is, this is, and I would have never known that if I had stayed in the mortgage business. I don't need to have the big company. I want them to grow their companies, to have the freedom to prosper. One of my companies I've been working with for 3 years, they just sold the company for $1.5 billion. I am so excited for them. I went crazy. I kind of knew it was coming, but that to me is I've just been on a high since that. And I have no financial, I mean, yes, they pay me for coaching, but I don't have any equity interest. They built this company. It's just, I mean, how amazing is that?
What I want to highlight here is like your voice, your energy, like has completely shifted, right? To like this, this is a song, like there's this upbeatness to everything you're talking about now in this new chapter. And it seems so aligned, or it sounds so aligned, like truly like a core of what you're doing in the world, and how much joy you got from supporting that company and through its, exit. And I'm sure many other companies, taking them on similar growth journeys. Your work, Jill, these companies are looking to you for decision making, and often how you're helping them make decisions may impact hundreds, if not thousands, underneath. So I'm curious about, is there anything that you've done, or any decisions or any kind of how you help the leader through a certain situation. You don't need to say the company or leader, but maybe highlight situationally kind of what was happening, how you brought something to a solution and the impact of that. Has anything kind of come to mind that you're super proud of?
Well, so first of all, I want to clarify. I'm I'm not making the decisions. I always explain that it's like a funnel, and I'm going to ask so many questions, and I may be asking the questions that nobody else is in the room on their team, on the leadership team, because they're so close to it. So I'm asking the questions, we're filling that funnel. And as you know, a funnel comes down, and when it gets down and starts coming out, all of a sudden you go, oh, now I see what that is. And they see it. So I'm helping them. I'm asking the tough questions that help them get to the answer. So when I go into an all-day session with them, I'm facilitating. I have an agenda of what we're going to do and what we're going to talk about. I don't know what the outcome's going to be on each of these things because but that's where they have these aha moments and say, wow, we wouldn't have figured that out. Well, again, it's like a funnel. I filled it with everything that they had and then came out with the answer. But I would say that to answer your question, I would say the toughest thing is when it comes to people and making those really tough people decisions. And it's having the right person in the right seat. And what has happens is that for all different reasons, somebody might be in a seat that it's no longer the right person. That role has changed. And there's a pretty famous book, Marshall Goldsmith is the author, and it says, what got you here won't get you there. And as these companies start to grow and change and transform, the people that were in some of the seats may not be the right people anymore. Those are really tough decisions. And so I probably the greatest value that I have is helping them besides getting a strategic plan together and how the accountability of executing on it, getting the results. I mean, that stuff's, I shouldn't say easy, but that's easy when you've got the right people. And so much time getting that healthy, cohesive team, and everybody's an A player in those seats. That is the crucial point.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love for you to expand on that, right? Yeah, if you're working with leaders in this way, right? People, right seats. Um, well, I know this is a loaded question, probably so much easier than any answer you could give again in the short period. But if you kind of could look across the companies you've supported, and what is kind of the framework and thinking or the way you think about saying, one, is this person the right person for this seat? Um, and how do you know if they are right over time? Um, and if not, how do you go about finding that person right for the seats? And that's a little bit of question on recruiting and probably performance management. But when you're kind of looking at that and working with the company to kind of think through that, what's most important in kind of getting that right?
Yeah. So, I mean, we could do a whole nother hour just on.
Or probably 2 hours. Yeah.
Right. But it's, first of all, it's looking and saying, defining, is this a critical role? Is this a role that is actually could put the company at risk, could actually move the company into opportunities? So I've got all kinds of tools around this that I work through. It's not something I can really kind of sum up all together, but then it's looking at the attributes and it's looking and because it's not just about their productivity in that role, it's about living the core values and making sure, because it doesn't do a company any good if they've got somebody who is productive in the role, but they don't live the core values, and that's not good. So they need to have both. You need to have both, and then it's taking a look at that. And I love using job scorecards. It's more than just a job description. A job scorecard focuses on what are the outcomes, the measurable outcomes that you need from this role. Not from and then you fit the person into it. But even when you're interviewing, I make sure the clients are using this job scorecard because they need to be really clear on the outcomes that they want in this role. And I think that, so it starts with that. It gets into the performance measurement then with the job scorecard and kind of goes from there. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff in between, but that's really important.
Awesome. No, it's awesome to kind of hear you're answering it and kind of having that across every important role for an organization. I'm sure extremely important so you can measure success and measure the clarity around objectives and the vision for the org. So that's pretty powerful. Jill, as we wrap up here, as you think about the next 5 years, 10 years, 3 years for yourself, right? Not just the companies you're leading. How are you defining success for yourself, personally, professionally, and what's ahead?
Personally, I've raised 3 kids who are all now married and have their own children. So I have 5 grandchildren. And so my 100% looking at my kids and their spouses and watching them parent and the joy that I'm getting from all these little ones is clearly the success personally that I can see how they are as parents just beyond. I get emotional thinking about it because it's just it's amazing, and I love my kids and I love their spouses and I love these grandchildren, and it's just that's how I measure success is personally. And I think professionally, it's I don't plan on stopping what I'm doing. This is as long as I can keep helping people. And I get this, as you said, you can hear it in my energy. And I get so excited to see what the success that they're having. Their success is my success. And so I tie it to that. And as long as I can keep helping them succeed and help them grow their companies and whatever freedom means to them, and that whatever they define success as, and I can help them get there, that wraps it all up.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it seems like you're leading life right now with a lot of intention in all areas, giving a lot of forethought based on the past experiences that you've had and this journey into leading mid-market team. So, Joe, this has been a beautiful conversation. I really appreciate it. I'd love to learn more about your time in the Rocky Mountains another time. But in the meantime, thank you for sharing all that you did. Where can people find you, reach out, learn more about Jill?
Yeah, you can check my website, which is jillbalconis.com, and it's JILL, B as in boy, EL, C as in cat, O, N as in Nancy, I, S as in Sam.com. Or you can just email me at jill@jillbalconis.com.
All right, Joe. Well, thank you so much for being here, your time, insights, energy, spirit, and excited to follow your work in the world.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Bryan.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The One Away Show with Jill Belconis. What stayed with me most is Jill's quiet strength, her ability to walk away from a career that no longer reflected her values and to turn uncertainty into space for growth, service, and impact. Whether she's guiding CEOs through tough people decisions or redefining what success means in this stage of life, Jill shows us that leadership evolves and that fulfillment often lies on the other side of letting go. If this episode resonated, I'd love for you to share it or leave a quick review. As always, we are back with new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time, keep choosing what aligns, even when it's the harder path.